The wait is finally here. Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is out and everyone can play it. I managed to get an early copy because of Walmart. Thanks. And played the game a little earlier than most. With this bit of extra time, it has given me hours to replay the game, find the good, the bad, and compare this game to the original. I've played Battle for Bikini Bottom for thousands of hours, and know the game's ins and outs better than most. So this is going to be a fair critique and a review of this game. Enjoy. Story-wise, it's what you all know and love. Plankton has made the robots, but loses control, and now it's up to SpongeBob and friends to save the day, yeah. Now, I know nobody was expecting some deep narrative, or one that's frustrating and makes you actually sad for the coming days, thinking about what you just played. Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about. Of course, graphically, this game looks fantastic. It manages to hit and stay at 60 FPS the entire time, and during my playthrough on my PS4 Pro, I did not experience an instance of frame dropping. When playing games like Spyro Reignited Trilogy, it was clear the developers had graphics go before frame rate, and in a 3D platform game, this is a poor choice. This game manages to do both. If there's one thing that Purple Lamp nailed, it was by far the graphics. On the flip side, we have the sound quality. Mostly everything is ripped from the original, besides some songs that have been revamped for this game. Unfortunately, the quality of some voice clips can, at times, show their age.
Oh, I certainly did. Next time I'll get it right. Ouch! We won! Who wants to get ice cream?
Jellyfish Fields is a great introduction, and by far one of the best looking levels in the entire game, but that does come at a cost. As many of you know, I played the game on my PS4 Pro, and the loading screens, especially in levels as demanding as Jellyfish Fields, were noticeably long. Obviously, in the PC port of this game, the loading screens can vary drastically, but I can only imagine what Switch owners will have to go through. Going back to the stages, I didn't expect downtown to look so clean. Purple Lamp did a great job and added some details that weren't present in the original. They also took some liberties to give it their own flair throughout each stage. Goo Lagoon Pier is a great example, as this area takes place with some excellent lighting and some beautiful scenery. Rock Bottom, Kelp Forest, and the Mermalair, the game's darker levels, have been brightened up in creative ways. Rock Bottom now breathes light purples and blues, Mermalair has an awesome red tint all around, and Kelp Forest is now a lit-up, vine-infested stage that's rich with detail. However, we also have stages like Sand Mountain, which in my opinion are huge steps back. Changing the snow to sand in this game is fine, and while I don't agree with this change, I can understand their thought process. What I can't get behind is the excessive use of fog, only holding back at this stage. In every single slide there is an abundance of fog, and I feel like I'm playing on a 2-chunk render distance in Minecraft. It was so bad that my eyes started to hurt, and I know that sounds like a pretty lame nitpick, but I'm being honest here. This level genuinely hurt to look at, and it was one of my favorite levels from the original, and now it's my least favorite, due to this one feature. And yes, I'm aware that the fog on the PC is heavily toned down. I was informed that the only reason the fog is so bad on PS4 is so that the game could hit a 4K resolution. And while I do respect the dedication to hit 4K, but the fog just looks so bad, I don't know how they could have been okay with this presentation. This isn't me saying all fog is bad, however. Mermalair and Dutchman have a ton of fog, but they use it in great ways. Mermalair has these deep, dark, endless pits, and the fog here is very effective. Same goes for the Dutchman's graveyard. It's a graveyard, so of course there's going to be fog. This works really well and actually makes the level a bit more spooky. Okay, so we've discussed the visuals, and for the most part, Purple Lamp hits it out of the park. But what about the gameplay and controls? Well, I'm happy to report that the game controls super smooth, and that was one of my biggest concerns about the game. SpongeBob is a lot floatier than in the original, but that's okay, it feels good, and it does make the platforming a bit more forgivable at times, especially later into the game. Patrick is also a joy to play. In the original, the areas where you had to play as Patrick were slower paced and weren't as combat intensive. In this game, though, Patrick can attack mid-air, something he could not do in the original game. This small change is so welcome that I'm worried to even go back to the original game and play as Patrick. And I might even say the same as Sandy. She is so fast in this game, it isn't even funny. Her attacks come out frames after each other, and her lasso ability in midair is broken. The lassoing segments aren't as fun as the original though. They feel a bit scripted, and sometimes I'll get caught on the walls and be detached, and in areas like Industrial Park, she has a hard time latching on when she stands a certain way. But most of the time, playing as Sandy were the highlights of my playthrough. SpongeBob also has 2 unlockable moves, these being the Bubble Bowl and the Cruise Missile. In the original, these moves were very useful and a fantastic addition to break up the simplistic combat. In this game, the bowl is a little less crazy, but that's to be expected. Strangely though, it suffers from an audio bug. It's the small things like this, and trust me, we'll get to these, that really add up over time and make the game feel a lot less polished. Anyway, the cruise missile. In the original game, I use this pretty sparingly. It's more of a crutch than anything combat-wise. Of course, it's required to solve certain puzzles, but for the most part, it isn't used too much. In this game, though, I went out of my way not to use it because of two problems. The first being, if you have your camera set to inverted, which I will note resets every time you swap characters. Yeah, hopefully they fix that soon, because that sucks. That was really annoying. It's like 30 minutes of gameplay just swapping my camera settings. It was really bad. So yeah, inverted cameras make the missile control strange, and I hated it. Which you can probably say, well, that's a nitpick, and yeah, I'll give you that, but why on earth did they decide to get rid of the explosion radius effect after it hit something? This truly baffled me on my first playthrough, like, I thought I was missing something. This makes every shot so much harder to hit, and with the weird inverted controls of the missile not being the same as the original, I just used the bubble bowl to take out most enemies. Another frustrating area was the sea needle bungees. Now most of the game's bungees are pretty simplistic, only requiring one dive to get to a spatula, but as many of you know, the sea needle tasks the player to destroy all tikis floating in each area. The only problem is, the controls here were so awful, I'd rather go stand on a bridge and grind for shiny objects for 2 hours. Actually no, I wouldn't do that. I'm glad that isn't in this game. This is so troubling, as the sea needle was already a relatively hard spatula to get, and adding these controls on top of that, you're set up for failure. Like, look at this, I'm trying my absolute best, but cannot get this last tiki. I tried diving at it multiple times, holding different directions on my controller, but nothing. It wasn't until the game just let me have it for no reason whatsoever. This, along with the cruise missile, really did a number on me. But I will say, the sponge ball in this game handles quite nice. Every time I use it, I feel like I have so much more control over it than I did in the original game. Plus, they added a jumping feature, which is nice, and dodging robots with it is very useful. Speaking of enemies, they have all been completely redesigned. They look great and really fit the art style of this game. The boss fights too look awesome. Robot Sandy and the Poseidon look a lot more modern, and to top it off, they definitely improved this fight over the original. It's a lot faster and a lot more fun to play. The Robot Patrick fight is unfortunately a downgrade. Phase 1 is what you expect, but trying to grab these lassos in Phase 2 can be really annoying, and Phase 3 is devoid of all challenge, where in the original it was just the opposite. Robot SpongeBob is a really cool fight. It's been dumbed down a bit, and now the area where you enter his head gives you checkpoints. While admittedly it did save me from having to redo the entire thing, I can't help but feel I didn't earn that. The other bosses in this game are the exact same, and they do the job. Really nothing too big has been changed from the original other than the Mr. Krabs spatulas. Okay, so in the original game, grinding for Mr. Krabs spatulas sucked. The amount the game gave you throughout the playthrough was not enough to pay for all 8 of his spatulas. Nearly 40,000 shiny objects were needed. And that, in my and many other people's opinions, was asking way too much of the player. So what does this game do? They more than double the amount needed. 108,000 shiny objects are required now for the most brain-dead set of spatulas in the entire game. On top of that, grinding in this game is also a lot slower, requiring a load screen per death. This grinding took me 2 hours and was not fun at all. At first I thought the shinies that you get from multiplayer carried over, and this whole thing was just a simple misunderstanding. The multiplayer is pretty rough, by the way. I played it with my 12-year-old sister for about 45 minutes and we finished it. Out of all the songs they could have chosen, they pick the rock bottom theme. Another baffling decision. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I was like, yeah, okay, surely these shiny objects that we're getting in this multiplayer carry over to my single-player file, right? No, they don't. I can overlook the audio bugs and the minor need of polish. I mean, the game plays great and looks gorgeous, but this crab spatula change I cannot overlook. And there was obviously a decision to increase each spatula by 3,000. If it's patched out, why was it even made like this in the first place? In terms of completing the game fully, I don't know if it's worth the time. While I did manage to get the Platinum Trophy in a few days, I'm not quite sure if getting those crab spatulas is worth it. And after 2 hours of grinding, I was not going to pay another 40,000 to go look at some artwork.
May I help you?
Overall, I really did love this game, and while the negative critiques sound harsh, I want to see this game be the best it can be. Purple Lamp lost 3 months of development due to the current pandemic, and I think the fact that they were able to produce a product of this quality in the amount of time they were given, they did a tremendous job. The great thing about new games coming out today is the constant updating and making the games better. I'm sure in the coming weeks we'll see patches of this game to make it more polished, and maybe even take some feedback from the community. And there we have it, my review of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. The wait was worth it, and I look forward to speedrunning and glitch hunting as well. Make sure to follow my Twitch channel where I'm going to start streaming attempts of this game, and my Twitter where I post haha funny YouTube comments, and more. Anyway guys, that'll do it for today's upload. I'll catch you later. Peace.